Welcome to this tutorial on how to draft a zip, trouser or pants pattern. Okay, and the first thing we have to consider when drafting a pants is the measurement. The measurement from the waist to the ankle for trouser, the waist measurement, the hip, the knee round and the knee length, the ankle round also. Then for the crotch can be measured by a formula I'm going to introduce to you guys. Okay, the first thing I have done here is to mark out my starting line, and the starting line is from the waist to the ankle measurement. And the next thing I want to do is to mark out my crotch depth. Okay, the crotch depth, the measurement for the crotch depth is the hip divided by 4. That's what gives you the crotch. So the crotch that I have here is the hip is 38 and the crotch depth is divided by 4 is 9.5. So I'm marking out my 9.5 here, and then I'm going to draw the line. So endeavor to have a straight line. You could do your measurements in 2 places to have a straight line. Okay, so the next thing I want to do now is to make a box here. Using this crotch, I'm still going to measure from this top 9.5, and then I'm still going to measure from this line like so, 9.5. So I'm going to make the box right away. Oops, this is it. So the next thing I would like to do now is to measure the hip length. The hip length for this trouser is 8. So I'll mark out the 8 right there. I like to have a straight line, so I'll mark it in 2 places so that I can have a perfect straight line. This is the front we are drafting. So the next thing I want to do now is to mark out the knee length. The knee length that I measured is 20. So I'm going to mark 20 right here. Like I said, I like to mark my measurements in 2 places. Another one right here. So I'm going to draw the line to that point. Okay, you can see. I'm also going to do the same for the ankle. This is the ankle. I'm going to measure the ankle. The ankle length is, I'm also leaving 2 inch for allowance. So I'm going to mark it right there, and then I'm going to do that line for the ankle. Okay, that's it. So now the next thing we are going to do is to determine our crotch extension, and the formula for the crotch extension is hip divided by 20. Hip divided by 20 is the hip divided by 20. The hip I have is 38 divided by 20 is going to give me 2 inches right here. 2 inches. So I'm going to mark the 2 inches here, and then it's already extended. So I've marked the 2 inches there. So the next thing I'm going to do is to determine the center point from this crotch. You can just decide to place your tip like this instead of doing the division. Place your tip like this and fold it to this line. Then you mark the middle. This is the middle from the crotch extension to the waistline, to this starting line. Okay. Another thing I would like to do is also to do the same thing at the knee. Remember, we are using the width for the width plus the hip, the width to determine the center. So what we are going to do now, we are still going to use the same method to do that. So with my tape folded like so, I'll bring it here and mark the center. Same thing for the ankle. So I'm going to draw the line to meet the knee, and then extend to the crotch depth. Okay, we have the line here right away. So the next thing I want to do now is I want to draw the line from my ankle. I hope we are seeing it. From my ankle here, the ankle round is 14 and then the knee round is 18. So we are going to divide the knee round by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So I'm going to measure 9 here just to know what is left. I'll measure 9 to know the remaining that is left. I'm going to share it 2.5. So I'm going to share it on this side and this side to have my line at the middle, my trouser line at the middle. So 2.5 divided by 2 is going to give me 1.25. 2.5 divided by 2 will give me 1.25. I'll mark it there. Then I'll mark my 9 inches. The same thing for the down. The ankle is 4. The ankle is 14 rather. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I'm going to do it like this to ensure that I'm doing the right thing. So what is left is 4.5. So 4.5 divided by 2 is 2.25. So I'm going to mark 2.25 right here and then mark by 7 right there. So I'm going to join these points now. We'll join these points. You can just extend it a little just for easy shape covering of its curve. So the same thing I'm going to do here. I'm going to extend it a little. Okay, then I'll use my curve like so. Like this. Then this side also, I'm going to do the same thing with my curve. Blend it to the hip side. So the next thing I want to do is actually to mark out my waist. The waist measurement here is 28. 28 divided by 4 this time around is 28 divided by 4 is 14. So I'll come to the waist like so. From this line, this starting line, I'll sheet this tape to the center, to this crotch line here, the crotch depth. So I'm going to mark, this is 7, I'll mark 7, and I'll add 1 inch for that allowance and mark 8. Then I will join this line right away to the hip length. Remember, this line is our hip length line. And then I'll extend it a little. I'm extending it a little by ½ inch here. So the next thing I want to do is to draft out my dart. So to draft out the dart, I'm going to determine the center of the waist, like how I bend my tape like the other time. I'll do that again. This is the center here. And then I'm going to mark 5 inch for the length of the dart. Make sure it's straight. So the next thing I want to do is to mark out ½ inch by the left and ½ inch by the other side. Then draw the dart out. Okay, So from this first dark leg, I'm going to join a line to meet this waist extension here. Yeah, that's it. So the next thing I want to do now is to blend my crotch, to blend it. This is how the blending is done with. Okay, so this is the front. This is just how to draft the front part. So I'm going to cut out the front now. That's what I'll use to draft out the back. Okay, so next, this is the back. This is the back. I decided to use a wider pattern paper on that so that I will not be short of space in the other one. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do in this back is to first of all, from this line, remember this is our crotch depth line, I'm just going to come to the tips here and mark 2 inches. Okay, 2 inches inward. Then I'm going to draw a line like so. Make sure you keep your paper in place so it won't be shaking. And then I'm going to extend it up. Now the extension for the back is 1.5 inch. Now if you see that the person you are making the pants for is big and has height, you can make yours. You can make it 2 inches. But for this one, I'm going to make it 1.5 inch because the person I'm making it for is not a big person per se. So I want you to pay attention carefully because this is the area, this crotch area, that usually gives challenge or people really misunderstand most of the time. Then I'm going to extend the hip line. Now I'm supposed to draft this one on top of, and I'm supposed to draft the two together, but I want to do it separately so that you will understand. Like while I was drafting the other one, I'm supposed to draft it together. Okay, so this is, I've extended my hip line and the crotch depth line. This is my hip line. So what I'm going to do next is this crotch back crotch extension towards the waist here. I'm going to measure my waist from there. Remember my waist is 28 divided by 4 is 7 plus 1. That's 8. So I'm going to mark it right there. Then I'm going to take it up by 1 inch. I'm going to take it up by 1 inch, but by half inch, sorry. But before I do that, let me extend this waistline so that I will not be confused. Okay, so I'm going to just take it up from the waistline. Okay, I'll do that by this side so that, okay, from here to here. Okay, now let me also take this hip line up. That's the hip, the starting, our initial starting line. Let me take it up also. I'm not doing anything extra, just taking that up so that we can understand better where I'm taking this half inch higher. Okay, so right away I'm going to join the waistline now. I'm going to join it, okay, to that point. Okay, so I'm going to bring this line down to the hip line now. But before I bring it down to the hip line, I'm going to come to this point where I started the new crotch line. I'm just going to measure like so. That's my actual hip now. Remember my actual hip is 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. So I'm going to mark it there. And I'm going to mark it down here too. Okay. So I'm going to connect the line to the waist. The smooth line there. And then I'm going to extend it to the crotch line with my curve. Okay, now I'll come to this knee line and mark half inch. I'm going to do it all the way to the down. So I'll draw the line from the ankle. So let me pull it so you can see. From the ankle there. So this paper is short. So what I'm going to do is, when I'm cutting, I know that I have an extension there. I'll just add it. So I'm going to extend it up a little. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to connect the line. Okay. You see, that's that for this side. Then we are going to extend this crotch now. The crotch extension for the back. The crotch extension for the back is the hip divided by 10. And then the hip divided by 10 for this one is 3.5. 38 divided by 10 is 3.5. So I'm going to extend it from this initial crotch line this way. Okay? That's from this initial crotch line. Hope you can see. I'm going to extend it there. So I'm going to draw the line. This is the extension line. Okay? So the next thing I want to do is to just measure 1 inch from my new crotch, that's the back crotch depth. Just measure 1 inch here. Let me draw this line for clarity's sake. Then I'll use my curve. I'll use my curve to just blend this line. So you have it there. Then I'll just mark ½ inch here at the knee line. I'm going to do the same all through to the down. Okay, like this. I'm going to draw the line now. And as well extend it up a little also. With my hip curve. Okay. I'm going to connect it now. So this is just how it looks. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to trace out this line so that it will reflect at the back. Then I'll connect it so you can see how it looks. So I'm just going to trace it like this. If you don't have a tracing wheel, get one. So you're going to see. Although this tracing I'm doing, because it's not with pen, I'm the only one that will see it. Okay? You have to be careful not to use it to cut your paper. So I'm going to join the line now. I can see the trace. What I traced. Like I said, you may not see it. I hope I'm doing the right thing. Okay, this one is a straight line. So endeavor to blend this line correctly. I deviated a little from the line, but problem. So show me the last thing I'm going to do now is just to mark out my dart like this. So ½ inch apart. Then the depth 6. So remember that that is always the center of your waistline. That's where the dart falls. Then it's ½ inch apart. Okay, this is it. So this is our back. This is our front. So don't get confused with all these walking lines you're seeing here. This is a trouser like this. Yeah. So we are through with this. Okay, this is how I placed the front part. I'm going to add allowance to this side. So after that, I marked the sides with my chalk. Make sure I add
Okay, this is
allowance
what I
that
have done.
suits,
I
that
have
will be
opened,
okay for
I have
me.
sewn the
So
sides,
this is
and
how
I
I
have
cut it.
opened up
After everything,
the
I
sides
cut it,
by
and
seam
I'm going
by
to,
ironing them.
after this cutting, I'm
See
going
how
to
it
sew
looks.
this
I've
side.
opened it up and
I'm
I've
going to sew it like
folded the down
this,
part, the
and
ankle.
then sew the
I've
other
folded it,
side
you
of
can
the
see,
crotch also.
folded the two with ironing, so that the next thing I'm going to do is to sew, and then I'm going to sew the crotch side to the ankle. That's the next thing. Okay, so mates, I'm going to take the measurement now for the band. This is actually 18 and a half. Because it's on fold, I'm going to multiply it by 2 and add half inch. So 18 and a half is 37. That's times 2 is 37. Plus 1 inch seam allowance is going to be 38. The actual waist for this trouser is 28. So by the time I add the elastic band, it's going to come together and give her exact width. So this is the fabric I'll be cutting. This is how I made the band. 4 inches. I folded half inch in by ironing. So I'm going to pin it around the trouser now. By the time I pin it, and then I would go and sew it